Speedy Sleuths. Welcome to the bustling streets of our very own Neon Noir, where mystery meets mayhem at the speed of sound.
I'm Jones Grey Fox, multiversal detective extraordinary.
And I'm Spare the Tanuki, your plucky girl Friday.
And this is the Case Files of Sonic the Hedgehog, a YouTube series where we try to figure out which Jim is scary or Robotnik, Cummings or Carrie.
Today, we are talking about the characters from the Sonic Saturday morning cartoon series from the 90s, often referred to as Sonic SatAM.
Like aggressively referred to. If you want to find this series, you just type in Sonic SatAM and there's all your Wikipedia, there's your wiki articles, there's your plushies, there's your statues. We'll get to that.
This was a very popular Saturday morning cartoon, like I said, in the 90s. One of my favorites as a kid. So today we're just talking about the characters. We're going to be doing this as a two-parter. We will be talking about the characters today, and in our next episode, we will be talking about the plot, the kind of like arc of the series as a whole. But today, we are focusing on the characters.
Yeah, because they're the engine that made the show run. They're very rarely did the writers go, okay, we're just going to bring in an element. No, they made it very grounded in character-driven action.
Yeah, it's a very, very characterful series, and unfortunately, I think this art for the DVD cover might have been drawn by Ken Penders. It kind of looks like his style, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, now that you've said it, yeah, this kind of it's got that weird, funky. Oh man, that's rough trade. I mean,
Yeah, you
we're
can kind
gonna,
of tell around the eyes a little bit somehow.
yeah, there's just this lost, and it's the swoops, the way he does swoops,
Hmm.
because he's more of a fantasy guy. So he does very swoopy. Also, those swap bots look like they've been doing Jim.
I mean, and Robotnik and Snively kind of look like maybe they were traced from a Spaz drawing, a
Who
Patrick
knows?
Spaziante drawing, but
Yeah.
it's hard to tell. But Sonic has been through so many different iterations,
Mm-hmm.
different animations over the years. But the Sonic Saturday morning cartoon has a special place in my heart. It kind of hit that sweet spot where I was kind of like between preteens and teens, or between young adult and becoming like a teenager. It hit a great balance of kind of like cute character design, kind of quippy, bantery humor with some like kind of surprisingly dark themes. And I mean, we won't go too into the plot today, but just kind of like a brief overview to kind of like set the stage. Sonic is part of a group of freedom fighters, including, the characters from the games that you might be familiar with, Robotnik and Tails. But for the most part, the cast is completely original to the show, and then later the comics, the Archie comics.
Yeah, this was the thing that a lot of people kind of forget, and even we do, especially because just so much Sonic has happened since this came out when we were weans, like you said, when we were those between teen and preteen. Oh yeah, that's a theme song that slaps.
Yeah, this is a great theme
Sorry, it's
song.
like playing in my head right now. Like it lives rent free in my head. Like when Sparrow first tracked me down and is like, "Hey, do you want to jump in on these case files?" And I'm like, "Look, it's not like I can still remember the lyrics of Blue Streak Speeds by Sonic the Hedgehog. Too fast for the naked eye. Sonic, he's
Sonic the
really moved.
Hedgehog.
Sonic, he can really." And it just keeps going. And I'm like, I'm just doing it cold. And I'm like, wow. And I thought I knew the Animaniacs theme straight. I'm like, this is my dumb superpower. Perfect. I am just the fox you're looking for. But it is like Sonic SatAM was such a surprise because there was nothing. This was you had a hero who ran around and freed people from this doctor. And while Japan and other iterations made Robotnik, Eggman a goofball, with a little bit of SatAM was like, well, what if he's just like, evil?
Straight up evil.
Just straight up evil. There is it's like the thing I forgot as I went away from the series. I remember like, oh yeah, Robotnik's the bad guy. And that coming back to do this revisit, and Reese was like, oh no, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, there are Lex Luthor could take notes. Some like legit baddies in other shows and stories I've read could be like, okay, and then you just kill him, you don't even expound? No, only for my enemy. Right, right. Well, what about Hedgehog? I will create all the We're gonna get into that.
Yeah,
It
he's
was a
intense.
he is really intense, and it's really well done in equal parts from the writing, from how they've scoped him, and just because Cummings showed up and did like it's you talk about people who went hard,
Yeah.
and you didn't have any reason to go this hard, but Jim Cummings at the mic is that dude on fire, and it's just burning. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what he was
He
told at the time.
he has an amazing like theatrical evil laugh.
Because yeah, it's chilling. It's really well done. Now that I've gotten older, I've heard more of his stuff. I can hear like, oh, there's a little bit of Darkwing, and oddly enough, Winnie the Pooh in there because it's Jim Cummings,
Oh
and
god, that's right.
we can move our voices around only so much, but it's so well done. So he became such a by positioning him as a genuine dark villain, and then the fact that this is not Sonic. I hate to. The problem with Sonic is you always start instantly comparing it against other Sonics. But when this
Mhm.
came out, it leaned more heavily into the themes that we saw in the video game, like we just went over, than here. Like they really went into no. Let's not just make this guy the like robot guy. Let's make this guy he won. He pretty like when you start Sonic the Hedgehog at the beginning, this is the scrappy underdogs below scrappy underdogs. If Robotnik put his head to it, these little furry critters would be dead. But it's because
Yeah.
he's so busy also expanding his empire, polluting the crap out of everything, industrializing everything. So it is like bleak to start.
Yeah, there's some
So
very strong like environmental messages, like
mm,
at least themes in the show that were very popular just overall in the 90s, but was handled pretty well in this cartoon. Our protagonists are freedom fighters headed up by Sonic and Sally, are up
mm,
against this evil guy who's just polluting and destroying their world. Um,
and it gets even better when you start finding out about the Bible. And we're going to get more into the Bible with plotting, but the Bible tells us some pretty sweet character details. So you know what? Here's my thought. Let's go to the hedgehog of the hour, the man that this happened. And this happened for two reasons. One, Sega wanted to do the cartoon because they're like, we got to get Sonic out there. So they had
mhm.
Sonic Adventures for just the kind of goofball stuff. And then the guys were like, hey, what if we do this a little, like, more serious? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because Sega, remember, you have to remember, everybody, Sega at the time was like, does it have Sonic? Yeah, we don't care. Just get it out there.
Yeah, there
Can you
was
identify?
a shocking lack of oversight for some
Yeah.
of these early Sonic projects.
Yeah, this was not y'all. This wasn't Marvel going like, well, this character can't do this or this character can't do that. This was very much like, well, does it have Sonic in it? Yep. Okay, cool. We're good. We're good. That's gonna make money.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And then on top of that, they were like, who do we get? We want to get Julia White, smoking hot, and I don't mean in looks, but just like popularity,
Mhm.
on fire. Julia White. They were like, we need him in a cartoon. We need him in a
Yeah, this
cartoon.
is back in the Family Matters days where he was
Purple.
the one of the most popular characters on TV at the time. And
Like
they wanted his voice for an action hero star, which is very different than his role in that sitcom.
yeah, and best part is he loves it. Anytime someone asks him about Sonic, he's like, I just played him as a straight hero. This was a like I don't know, people have asked him like, did I inject a little black into him? No, he was a hero and I played him as a hero. And it comes through because he's for all that Sonic is mouthy, arrogant, proud, and these
He's
things
got
do
an
come through.
attitude.
He does. He has his attitude. The boy's got the attitude, and it shows up time and again. But he also it defaults to hero. There are points in this show where like he could have easily just kept with the cocky, take a walk, whatever thing, and was like, nah, you know what? I'm going to be the bigger man about this. Here you
Hmm.
go. And it really works out. And honestly, season one Sonic is so fascinating for that, just because action, he's thinking. He kind of reminds me of the Dread Pirate Roberts Wesley from Princess Bride, because he's not much of a strategist, but he's really good at thinking on his feet and
Hmm.
turning a situation to his advantage, and also the banter, because he knows
The
quickest way
banter.
to get the Robotnik skin is to just start calling him names, because Robotnik always carries himself like, I am a gentlemanly lord, I'm going to kill you, but we don't have to be rude about it. Sonic is over like, oh, we don't have to be rude about it. He will do that, which it makes for a good foil, and it makes him for a fascinating lead, because you almost have to kind of be like, Sonic, please come save the day.
Well, it's interesting because this character really only works in an ensemble,
Yeah.
where he can kind of battle it out with not only the antagonist, of course, but with some of the other characters in his crew. Most notably the female lead, Sally.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so Sally Acorn is the Princess Sally. She is the daughter of the kind of like deposed king of Mobotropolis, I guess. Not the whole.
Mobius. No, Mobius.
Was he the king of the whole planet?
Whole planet. King
Is
King
that how the
King
that's how that
Acorn.
works?
Yeah. Well, it. So one of the wild things is you see a lot of stuff in the show and you're like, oh, what's going on there? Apparently the show Bible's like, the year is 3000. Humanity has died. Furry animals have taken over. So this Mobotropolis was their set. So yeah, he ruled over all of Mobius, the whole planet. He was
Wow.
King Acorn was the whole of it. And then his daughter, Princess Sally Alicia Acorn. Like, I thought I was deep in the paint. No, no. I forgot, or just, it never stuck, that Sally's middle name is Alicia, just like everybody knew Sonic's middle name was Maurice.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Sonic
Maurice,
Maurice Hedgehog, it's got the right rhythm of an uncle calling it across the hills.
Sonic
But
Maurice.
exactly,
I don't remember if Uncle Chuck actually ever calls him that, but he must at some point, right?
right? He never actually brings it out. I think Sally secretly knows it and intimates that she was. But it really is, these two kind of lead the show in a lot of ways. And what's interesting is that Sally defers to Sonic as the leader a
Hmm.
lot. Like, even though it's very clear they co-lead, and people will like look at Sonic like, save us, but they'll look to Sally as like, can you please tell us what we're doing today? Like, you can tell who they trust for long-term thinking and who they tell to get them out of a jam. Like
Yeah.
Sally.
And Sonic and Sally, they have this kind of contentious will they, won't they kind of thing going on.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're arguing, other times they're flirting.
Yeah.
It's, and sometimes Sally is being, overbearing or quote unquote bossy. God forbid a woman do anything. But
Heavens.
and Sonic is of course taking it personally that she's, dunking on his vibes or whatever. But
Yeah. Because he's like, I gotta do what I gotta do. Hedgehog's gotta do. Okay, Sally. And then
but
just sometimes I couldn't tell if it was Julia White riffing, because just the way he
maybe it
spoke
was.
and moved. TV, they don't get a lot of room to do off the cuff riffing.
That's true, but they have this kind of fun dynamic
Hmm.
that I feel like wasn't unusual for kind of like girl boy kind of pairings of this variety back in the 90s. There had to be like some antagonism between the male and female lead for some reason. They couldn't just get along and be nice to each other all of the time. There had to be some snark in there, which I
So,
I enjoy me some snark. Not going to say I don't, but
oh yeah. Well, and I get to tell you this so you can have your head pop off. You're not going to be able to find this on DVD. You
oh.
you get this snark because of a show back in the 80s called Moonlighting
Oh,
with Bruce Willis and, oh my God, of course I forget her
what?
name. Moonlighting. It basically created the
What?
DNA that you would see for every girl boy tense will they won't they back and forth, because the Moonlighting based it in a lot of clever, snappy dialogue that
Mm.
from the 20s of the screwball era of romance, where it was about characters reconnecting and finding common ground despite connection. So Sonic and Sally's DNA matches up with Zelda and Link's DNA from that Nintendo Power
Yes.
Hour. The vibe, you can feel Sonic is 2 seconds away sometimes. We're going, well, excuse me,
Oh my
princess.
God, you're right. You're right. You're so right.
And it's like you look at that, and then you look at like Tailspin with Baloo and Rebecca. You look at
Mm.
Cheers with, well, now I'm just thinking of Cheers. So with their leads sparking off each other, and it's just that was the DNA. Everybody drank that. Every writer drank that Kool-Aid, and anytime they had a lead, they just did that, and it went on for like practically a decade.
Yeah, and Sally's character has an interesting kind of like design background, because
Oh boy.
like you mentioned, this character has kind of like evolved over time from the series Bible. Like at
Hmm.
one point she was blonde, and then
Yep.
she was pink with black hair, and eventually she became a brunette with brown fur, and then eventually she got a vest.
Yeah, and from there, once like by the time the vest settled down in season two, that seemed to be Sally's just like overall look, and
Hmm.
it mostly held together there. What's really wild is so while we always think of, the obvious ones they pulled from the video games, Tails, Robotnik. I wonder if season three would have ever got to Knuckles. Who knows? But
Maybe
Sally actually came from the video game too.
from the video game, really?
She came from originally, she was an incredibly minor character.
Uh,
She was just like it. She's like, if you look back, there is a chipmunk in one of the designs, and I think some scribble note was like, "That's Sally,
that's
one of
Sally.
Sonic's animal friends, and freed when Sonic
Oh, I
breaks her
see.
out of
So
a
one of the
padnick."
little animals that they free
Hmm.
from the end of at
Yeah,
the end of the level. Interesting. Was named
she
Sally, the
yeah
chipmunk.
she had her own official merchandise at 91, and so when she came over here, they probably were just like, have a chipmunk named Sally because we've already got that on lock, and
Oh,
everybody just kind of grew it from there.
how funny. I did not
Like
know
I
that.
Yeah. I didn't know that in addition to going from the video game to this to like becoming across the comics where she would, lodge in our hearts and souls
Mm.
for us nostalgia nuts forever, she'd get her own statue.
That's right.
What?
You told me this kind of like forbidden lore, and let me bring up the
Ye-
photo. What did
Bring
I
it.
do with it? Because I was like, what? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
apparently Sonic and Sally have their own statue, or they did have their own statue. Did you say it was in
Yep.
Australia?
Sydney, Australia. Sega World.
Sega World.
Son Yeah, Sally was so popular, in addition to Sonic getting himself, she got to join him on the platform. And there they are. That's not AI, folks. I didn't ask a computer to make this happen for me. I couldn't ask a computer to make this happen for me.
No, yeah, you sent me this photo, and immediately I found this other related photo, uh,
Mm-hmm.
of the statues later.
Yeah.
Oh no, poor Sally.
The sadness. The pain. Nothing's forever, kids.
Nothing is forever, but that's so interesting that she was such a
Yeah.
popular character in Australia, in particular. They even had her at Sega World.
Right?
I would have
So,
loved to see that as a kid.
oh. Oh, you and I, we would have melted. Look, I named my first dog after Sally. She was
Oh.
just, oh yeah. She was very cool. It's like she was the character I drew a lot of, wish I could
Hmm.
be like. She was smart. She was cool. Like I had a thing for Sonic anyway, because growing up, it was always about super speed, because I never felt like I could get enough done, even as a kid. Oh, look, now I'm an adult with anxiety. All
Oh
these case
gosh.
files piling up. This is fine. This is fine.
This is fine. This is fine.
This is good. Yeah, I can deal with it. I'm fine. This is fine.
But I
So,
get exactly what you mean, because Sally was like incredibly competent, incredibly smart. She was pretty,
yes.
and she was,
Mm-hmm.
Sonic was the leader, but was he really? She was basically the leader. He just kind of like did the
Yeah.
work.
it really boiled down to Sonic was the leader in the sense of he was the big loud one, and she was like, "Oh, look over there." No, really, if you go over there, it's going to work out great for everybody. Just go that way. And once she got him pointed in the right direction, yeah, Sonic would go and do because he's a hero. But she's the one signing. Sonic's the CEO. Sonic is the Tony Stark.
Mm.
Sally's Pepper Potts. She makes sure that everybody gets paid, fed, and that everything works. Puts the gears on, and this is something that probably a lot of women are used to, but fortunately, it's not a lower standing. Sonic will turn to Sally and be like, "I got nothing." You, because he's like, that's the smart one. It's like several points in the series. Sonic has gone, how about this? How about that? Sally? And it's also gone another way where Sally'd be like, I can't think. And Sonic is like, I think too much. Let's go. Ooh, I have an idea. Which is like, Sonic
Yeah,
ain't smart, but he can problem solve at an accelerated rate.
they had a great dynamic. They worked together,
Oh, it was.
and it made for an
Very well.
enjoyable watching experience, for
Less
sure.
enjoyable. Less enjoyable for me was just the 90s jockeying for her attentions
Yes,
as the girl.
that
Like,
I feel like in the
guys.
comics it became more of a thing. There was several love triangles in the comics, the Archie comics. In
Oh,
the
yeah.
TV show, I think it happened to like a little bit. Like I know Antoine was always like trying to get in her business, but she didn't really give him the time of day for the most part,
Nope.
except to maybe make Sonic jealous once or twice.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they didn't lean heavily into the love triangle angle in the TV series that I recall.
No,
Um,
well, remember, it was, she got one-off dudes who Sonic would go like, I don't like that guy.
yeah,
Like,
he was the jealous
competent
type.
ones. He was easy jealous boy. He's like, it's like, Antoine, I will declare my love for Sally. And Sonic's like, sure you will, dude. Like he never viewed Antoine as a threat. I don't think he even viewed Antoine as an asset. So
I'm
nobody
not
viewed
sure
Antoine.
anyone did, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So with that, let's kind of talk about some of the rest of our freedom fighter cast.
heck yeah.
So starting, obviously we have Sonic. We talked a little bit about
Sally.
Sally. There's also Bunny, Tails,
Oh heck
Antoine,
yeah.
and Rotor, or Boomer. I think he was briefly called in some material. Maybe that was only the
Yeah.
Archie comics. But I think the name that they finalized was Rotor.
Yeah. They went with Rotor because he's the handyman, and that kept more in line with it.
So let's talk a little bit about Tails, because he is one of the characters that
Yeah.
came from the games, but
Yep.
was kind of, to be honest, a little bit underutilized in this series. Like instead of being a kind of like sidekick to Sonic, he was really just like a little kid that everyone had to take care of for the most part.
Yeah.
And while he was very cute, he often didn't really have like a huge active role in the story outside of maybe like one or two episodes, which I thought
Yeah.
was kind of odd considering he was a character from the games.
Yeah. It really I think what happened is they ended up with this crowd of teenagers around Sonic as peers, and here was Tails, who even in the source materials, like, this is a younger guy. This is his
Yeah.
kid. He's got his 1,000 hours. He can fly the plane, but he's still a kid. And the nice thing is he's got the slowest of slow boil character development to get him to
Mm.
where he's side by side working with Sonic. Apparently, if we'd gotten to season 3, we would have got to see him really start getting in there. But those one or two peppered episodes there, like season 1, he is nothing but like he is home
Baby.
base hope. He's baby. Look at him. He got that
He's
big eye. Say
baby.
baby.
Like, they're looking after him, they're making sure he gets out of trouble, they're reading him bedtime
Hmm.
stories. Like he's like an elementary schooler, whereas they are teenagers. It's very
Yeah.
clearly delineated that they're like not on the same level. And it's
Yep.
babies watching babies in here.
It's very well, yeah. It's like It's said once or twice that the parents are either roboticized or gone. And so
Yeah,
it's like this is as close as it gets. But even with that, like Tails still gets some wins. Like when Sally gets replaced by a clone robot thing, he's the one who catches it out and like
that's
brings it
right.
as to everybody's attention. He's also the one that like later on in the series gets like a brainwave and figures out how to trick Robotnik in a major way. And
Hmm.
Sonic's like, "Who was that?" Sal's like, "That was Tails." Get the heck out of town. And so it's lots of noogies and affectionate. So like they slowly grow him from
Hmm.
precocious child. So by the end of the series, you could see that like yeah, if they'd gotten to season 3, we probably would have seen Tails doing more than just
Much more
manning the
active.
watchtower. By like season 2, he's at least in the watchtower. Yeah, he's parked, but like he's also like 10. And while yes, this is a 15-year-old this is horse. Yes, this is horses telling dogs what to do, but dogs without horses. It was madness. There's your John Mulaney joke for the day. But
Cats and dogs living together.
mass hysteria. And there's your Ghostbusters joke.
There's our
But
Ghostbuster reference.
it is. We had to work it in at some point. But yeah, no, for all that it stinks as somebody who one of the joys of playing the Sonic 2 game was, oh crud, I've gotten lost. I'm gonna set Tails down. He caught up, yay, and now I can play again.
Yay!
Where and in runs where you can win the game as Tails, it is a bit rough, but it helps
Mm.
because it honestly breaks up the freedom fighters. It shows
Hmm.
that it's not just teenagers going like, all right, we're gonna say screw the man, and it is very obvious who the man is and how he's going to get screwed. But that they also have to take care of each other here because there are
Mm.
slightly younger people in the like Tails is the prominent kid, but we see other kids in Knothole Village. So it's one of those like very he kind of is representative of the younger guard. I have a feeling if there had been another time travel episode, they would have like had grown up
Mm.
Tails who had like a scar and had a cigar or something.
The cigar.
Oh,
Maybe
it's like
back
I'm
then.
tough now.
That's a hilarious idea. And I can
Thank
totally
you.
see it.
Oh yeah,
Kind of like speaking of, we mentioned Knothole just then, but we hadn't really kind of talked a little bit about the setting of the
oh
show, and
yeah,
we'll probably get into this in our next episode a little bit more. But I love this illustration I found of Knothole, this like
yeah.
painted uh, like key art that someone created. But later, Knothole had like a more kind of like futuristic kind of look, which I also
Bring
thought
that
was
big,
quite
make that
cool.
bigger.
Yeah.
Like we need
Um,
to look at this. This is that evocative. This is solar punk. This is that
mm,
making it's just reinforces because visual like think visually, right? What are we used to seeing with Robotnik? Hard blacks,
yep.
angles, and look at all these gentle whites and curves, and we've even just got a gorgeous river here. So it's such a great visual contrast and also
Hmm.
speaks to like these are not like backwards robot. These are not backwards furries. This is one of them uses a computer. They know how to use technology. They're fine. This bald evil dude rolled up and said "mwahaha." So I love this, and I love that this makes it much more attractive versus you
Yeah.
know
Versus Robotopolis has this kind of darker palette, all these kind of like murky kind of lines, um,
and
kind of
it's not as sexy.
dilapidated kind of scene.
Yeah,
I love this like this dilapidated chili dog stand. That was funny.
man. Y'all. And it doesn't even have those zippy anime lights we had from the OVA, so it really
No.
just is this very depressing place to look at. The colors, it's rusted, it's dungy.
Yeah,
Even
but
when or
these.
it's circular, it feels so cold and uninviting versus the warmth of Knothole. You immediately want to like chill at Knothole. I'm not saying
Yeah.
you aren't gonna want to chill at Robotnik's place. I know some people go for the techno thing, but just like visually, the language is very clear and it tells you without even saying a word. Ta-da.
This is where the good guys live.
Bingo.
But yeah, I love those old school kind of like matte painted backgrounds that
Yeah.
unfortunately we don't get quite as much in today's animation. But
No.
so moving through the rest of our cast, we talked about Tails. So some of the other prominent kind of like teenage characters. One of my favorites was Bunny. I loved Bunny. I just have a huge affection for any like animated character with a southern accent, at
Mm-hmm.
least female character with a southern accent. I just find it so cute and endearing. And so Bunny was basically like a cyborg because she was partially roboticized or turned into a robot, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like stopped halfway, so she was still mostly um, her own bunny self.
Mm-hmm.
But she also kind of acted later on as kind of like the tank, like the muscle of the
Oh yeah.
series, which I thought was very nicely contrasted with her kind of like sweet Southern belle kind of like personality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I just found it very cute and endearing, and I love this character design. I just think it's really appealing.
Oh, it is. It's the point her asymmetry, her kind of bulky lopsidedness, with the fact that she is a girly girl.
Mm,
She is like Sally is a tomboy. If you had to
mm.
put like, well, who's the princess? And if Bunny walk in, how y'all doing? Can we do this? It's like, oh well, clearly she's the princess. She's genteel. She's thing. Sally comes in, guys, I've studied the thing. She's got like sticks in her hair, and Sally
But
has that
Bunny's calling
energy.
everyone sugar and sugar hog
Hmm.
this and that and
Yeah.
oh my
And
stars.
And like in the comics, they took this even further, saying that her dreams were to be a beautician. Like she wanted
Mm,
to
like a
style and
hairdresser,
do
yeah.
exactly. She wanted to, pun intended, I guess. But yeah, like
Hairdresser, yeah.
yeah. But like unlike and she's also like one of the fussier characters. Like that's something that somebody that I notice is like Antoine cares about his appearance, but Bunny also cares about her appearance. Like she wants like her ears to fall right. She does the eyeshadow.
Hmm.
So it's nice that she's like, I am a Southern lady. Boom. Like
And
and she's the
yeah,
bruiser.
it's
This
just that,
contrast.
yeah, nice contrast with her character. And it creates kind of like a conflict as well because she doesn't want to be a superpowered robot. She wants to
Nope.
be a normal girl or a normal bunny girl, I suppose.
Yeah, she
Um,
just wants to be a delicate lady.
and there's this actually like really touching episode which was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
emotionally draining where Bunny gets de-roboticized for
Yep.
a hot second and she's like so excited and so happy to finally be a normal girl again. But then when it obviously doesn't stick and she is turned back
Yeah.
into a robot, she's just devastated. She's like crying and sobbing, and it like really kind of tugs your heartstrings. You're just like, oh man,
Yeah.
I feel bad for her.
You
um,
really do. Your whole heart goes out to her because you can see it here. Even before we've gotten to the yank back, she's so thrilled. It's
hmm.
so happy. And she just, because she'll still help. Like, she's not going to drop it, but now she just gets to be herself. And, and because that's the kind of thing that happens. Roboticization is like, it's unwilling, and you don't get to
Yeah, it's
walk into it.
dehumanizing. It's taking away your agency. It's taking away your choices. It's making you a literal drone of evil.
Yeah. Yeah, like in the fun, yeah, like there's the zap and poof, and oh no, this makes no sense.
No, it
This is not
doesn't.
how anything works. But roboticization, whatever. Like, oh look, her arm is still organic-ish.
Yeah, is it?
Okay, yeah, look at her. She's devastated. This is,
Yeah.
and it's the thing that I think about as I watch this more and more is just like, what does this say about people with prosthetics and stuff? And I realize it's not because Bunny doesn't
Hmm.
get mad about her limbs because she can't be who she wants to be. She gets mad at her limbs because it wasn't her choice, it wasn't her option,
Yeah.
and she's worked around it and she's powerful, but it's that kind of anger and resentment. And the worst part
Hmm.
is it originally was supposed to be an assistive device. Like when the
Hmm.
roboticization was built, and it was built by Uncle Chuck.
That's right.
Yeah, we find that out in Blast the Past. He made it because he's like, oh man, what happens when people get sick or get hurt or whatever? Extend things. Because he was a little death fearful, but he's like, this will just help
Hmm.
everybody. You get that, and they're like the ultimate assistant device. And I'm like, I don't know if I could plug my ass into the wall and chill for a bit. That is kind of very assistant. But if someone's like, I don't want in for that, you got to respect it. Or, if they were like, even if she was injured, and then like later on in the comics, they get to the point where they can't turn her back because her body's
Mm.
just been into it so long. They literally have to amputate and put on new limbs
Oh
for her.
gosh.
And when that happens, she leans into it because she's like, these aren't Robotnik's limbs now. These
These are
are mine.
mine.
Like
Yeah.
it's an evolution and a step up. It doesn't hurt the fact that they're better built too, like the
Hmm.
guy who built her new limbs. So to see her at this stage is to see her still wrestling with the fact that she has been slapped with this without, consent or that. And there's not even a place we could do where there's a this is on my head because I've read some recent stuff with Star Trek and Borg. Hi,
Hmm.
we're off in a cul-de-sac here. I'm probably going to cut
We're all
this.
nerds here.
We're all nerds here. So, like, I was reading Star Trek Borg and the notion of transhumanism and how that speaks to
Mm.
a disability, and
Hmm.
like her anger at it. It really, like, I kept investigating it, and I'm also being like, hey, what does this speak to that? It really doesn't, because again, it just goes back to it's that gag from that video game that our friend Reku would put up, where he'd be like, "I didn't ask for this," and it is.
Yeah.
Bunny had her life ahead of her, and then this happened, and she's angry at it, and has a right to be angry at it, even though she's got these awesome cyborg parts. It got yanked out of her paws, but she still makes do. She's still like, I think I remember seeing like, I'm gonna buff myself up. Look at the shine on that arm. Like, she
Yeah.
takes pride in herself. She still takes pride in her appearance, but as you saw, this is still a inner conflict. So she's not just like, cool, I'm a cyborg. This becomes a part of the character.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, nuance in my female character. What is that?
Yes,
And
it's
the fact that,
amazing.
in a you could say that this show was probably aimed at a young boy audience in the 90s, but they had several, more than one female character
Hmm.
prominent in a lot of the action. Shock.
And the boys didn't mind. They just thought they were cool, or went on to think they were other things. But I don't want to get into that. But
Yeah.
yeah, Bunny was, remains, and stands cool. Even though she kind of fades in season two, she's still
Mm,
around, but she doesn't get as much focus because we get Dulcie, who we'll get to. But Dulcie's the season two
yeah.
add-on. She was always there in the background, didn't you know?
Yeah, she just like shows up one day. But we'll get to Dulcie, but
We'll get to Dulcie because she's cool.
next of our core cast of characters, we have Antoine.
Can we
Um,
not? Can we say? Can
not.
we not and say we did?
So Antoine is I honestly I'm not sure why he was such a prominent character because out of all of these side characters, he has the most episodes focused on him. And I can only guess because they thought he was funny.
Well, they had Rob Paulson voicing him, and
No,
that gave
no,
him a lot of.
the voice acting was excellent, but the character themselves was
Mm,
honestly kind of
agreed.
annoying and cringe. So, because he is the coward stereotype, like he's not heroic,
Very.
he is jealous, he is egotistical and prideful, but he doesn't have anything to back it up. Like
Nope.
when push comes to shove, he's going to be the one who runs and hides instead of faces his fears. For the most part, I think maybe he has one or two moments later on where he kind of overcomes that, but for the most part, he is the comic relief. He is the butt of the jokes. He is the stuck-up French guy to contrast against our cool American hedgehog, I guess.
Yep. He is a foil. He is cowardice to Sonic's bravery. He is faux authority and dignity in the place of real charisma and personality. He is yearning. He is the Daffy Duck to Sonic's Bugs Bunny.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, exactly. He is that kind of like very egocentric kind of
Hmm.
character, but just cannot back it up.
Not even a little bit. Even with two seasons, Tails got more development than this guy.
Yeah.
By the end of season two, Tuan went from a complete butt monkey to only mostly a butt monkey.
Yeah, and Gosh. Yeah, rewatching the series recently, like they have several episodes back to back just focused on Antoine's storylines. It's
Ugh,
baffling. It's like
it's painful.
it feels like it was like, was this court ordered that you had to have 5 Antoine episodes in this season or something? It
I
was
like that.
it
Court
was very
ordered.
odd. And this is like a apparently infamous scene where Snively, who we haven't really discussed at all, but Snively is like Robotnik's sidekick, evil henchman. And here he's torturing Antoine by making crepe Suzette incorrectly.
Which, it's a good bit. Comedy wise, that's terrific because it says a lot about like how cultured and dignified Tuan feels he is, and that the pain he feels
Oh,
from this meddling of his culture, of his like I respect Tuan for that much. It's like, how
yeah.
dare you? It's like if someone was like, I'm gonna make an omelet. Cool. I'm gonna throw in a giant strawberry. What?
You know,
I'm not going to put anything else sweet in there. Just one big strawberry. You have to cut it up.
oh,
Otherwise, you can't wrap this omelet around.
and yeah, I could
I
take
feel
it
you,
if it was
Twan.
just like, a short joke here and there. I have nothing against comedy relief, obviously, but like
Mm-hmm.
they had entire episodes Antoine based that took the plot nowhere, took the character nowhere, were just there to be vaguely funny, I guess, but not really. I don't
It was
know.
rough.
It
It
was
was
rough.
rough. Like adding to the roughness is the fact that Sally is like, "Can you please go save Antoine?" No, he would do. He wouldn't do the same. But you're the hero. I may be the hero. He's gonna get us killed one day. Point. Um. Power ring, power ring. If you go save the power ring, okay, I will go save the power
Yeah.
ring. And if I have time, I'll save Antoine. Like that was a lot of the conversations when Antoine would get himself deep in the problem. When he was deep in the khaki, Sally was the only one advocating for it. Please do not let him die. I think Tails was somewhere going back there like, I'd be fine.
Poor
It's
Antoine. I know we're picking on him a lot, but
the show didn't do him any favors.
he
You really
kind of
have to get to the
deserves it.
comics.
He kind of
Like
deserves it.
if you want a fleshed out character, you've got to go to the comics where you actually
Yeah.
watch him grow from finish that transition from coward to capable swordsman. Like he is their musketeer, and and a lot of his life is just put the fear in a box. But that's comics, and
Yeah.
later on, him and Bunny become a power couple. Which, given that they're both like care about their appearance, they want to look good, it worked for me. Like in the comics, when they drifted toward each other, found each other, and he came into his own as Bunny settled into herself and was like, okay, I'm gonna own being me. Like there are bigger arc in the comics really pays off where in the TV show it really is a kickoff and just the groundwork for where these
Mm.
characters could go.
Yeah, like there's a couple of scenes where you kind of see them interacting, but it's
Hmm.
fairly minimal. But yeah, in the in the comics, I know their relationship kind of expands. I do kind of feel like it's just like, oh, we have a male character and a female character in our cast, so let's smash them together. Other than Sonic and Sally,
Yeah.
but I can definitely see the argument that the character gets better in the comics.
Hmm.
In this cartoon though, not so much,
No, the
unfortunately.
cartoon lizard, and you're going to hear us always call the cartoon to the
Hmm.
comics, and that's because these both kind of informed each other to a certain extent,
They
even though
did.
the comics didn't have like word one from the cartoon show. Like this was Sega's America Western push with Sonic, and this was the stable they were operating from.
Yeah, the
So
early Archie comics were actually developed like almost simultaneously with
yeah,
the Saturday morning cartoons. So while they have some things in common, they diverge on other things. You can see Pink Sally on one of the early Sonic covers.
yep,
But that character design also evolves over hundreds of issues of Archie comics.
yeah.
Um, and we get different versions of her there as well. But
Hmm.
to round out our cast of freedom fighters, unfortunately, we don't have a lot to talk about with this character because I think they were kind of shafted, unfortunately. But this
Yeah.
is Rotor, also called Boomer at one point. Maybe that was only in the comics, but
Yeah.
he was like the mechanic of the crew, and
Yeah.
otherwise he was just kind of like soft spoken, and he didn't have like the attitude like Sonic, and he wasn't like a hyper genius kind of like Sally. He just didn't
Hmm.
really like stand out. But I actually like the character design we see here in the middle. Like it's actually quite charming and
Hmm.
cute. And then
Yep.
later in the second season he got a redesign and
Oof.
it was a downgrade. I don't know
Yeah.
why they changed his character design so drastically. I know Jones earlier, before we started recording, you hypothesized that maybe it was a different like set of animators working on him.
Maybe.
I feel like I read somewhere that there was
Bad
like
luck.
a call from the production company or the publisher, ABC, I believe it was where it was airing at the
Hmm.
time. They asked for some character updates, and this was a downgrade. I just really do not understand. Like the red hat, and they made his like fur kind of gray. They gave him kind of like ugly shoes and changed them to red, and like which I feel like it's too similar to Sonic's red shoes. Maybe that's what they were
Hmm.
going for, but like I don't know. I just really dislike this character design for some reason. I think this one in the middle is much cuter.
And that's the one they ran with in the comics. The one on the left was season one, and the comics
Yeah.
stuck with the original designs and were like, yeah, the purple gold works for
Mhm.
Rotor. And he is that contrast where you've got hyper competent Sally, super fast Sonic, you've got, powerhouse Bunny, and Antoine, he's got jittery energy as a coward. Rotor
He's the
is
comedy
the
relief, yeah.
yeah, Rotor's calm. Rotor is is a lot of the straight guy, but that means he also is like kind of quiet. And since he's the handyman, since he's the whereas Sally is a genius, it's more like she's programmer. Like you can hand her SQL, she can figure out. Rotor, you can hand him a tire, a refrigerator, and a couple of computer parts, and he's like, yeah, I can make something of. He's the hardware guy. He knows how to kludge. He knows how to mythbuster. This man could strap a JATO rocket to a Robotnik hovercraft, and Sonic could be like, "You can fit so many drama points in this thing."
Now that I think about it, I almost feel like Rotor would have been a better choice for a bunny romance because he's the mechanic. They could do like, she obviously needs some maintenance, so she's going to him, confiding in him. I feel like that would have made a little bit more sense, but I
The
can see,
Nurse Nightingale, I vibe it.
yeah, but I can see how this character isn't considered handsome, I guess. I don't know. I think the character design is cute,
Yep.
but yeah, unfortunately, this character I felt was like really underutilized in the series and the comics and just like overall. He was just kind of like a background character, unfortunately.
Yep. Rotor, we hardly knew ye.
But so rounding out our cast, that is our set of main freedom fighters. But of course,
Yep.
we have some important side characters. Um,
Yep.
One we already mentioned who shows up kind of like unannounced in season two. She's just there.
Yep.
Just suddenly they have a dragon.
Dulcinea the Dragon has shown up, and everyone thank the cartoon god because it's Cree Summer doing what Cree Summer does best. Like as soon as Dulcie spoke when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, I know that voice because Cree Summer was like one of a handful of actresses I was starting to clock. And I loved her. I thought she was very charming and a good bring on. But the fact that nobody says anything, like you just go into
Yeah.
season two, and be like, hey, Dulcie, and I'm like,
Who?
whomst?
Oops.
Where did? Did she come in from out of? Was she the one who brought the vest for Sally?
Apparently, she has like a harness, maybe.
Yeah. She brought the harness. He's like, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
here for this Sally, and also I'm going to be your new sidekick. Money, what about my role? Oh, you're just going to go to the back. Okay.
Yeah, and Dulcie brings in, like you said, an excellent voice actress, but she has lots of those kind of like canned lines. Like every time she
Yep.
crashes, she's like, "Oh, sorry, Ma," or something about her mother, isn't it? Every time she crashes,
Yeah,
she like
there's always
hallucinates her
this little
about her mother.
line.
It was
It's
very
yeah, like
strange.
it's awkward is what it is. It's they kind of did anime girl klutz with her. So she's just kind of oh
Yeah.
so klutzy but adorable, and plus she's got Launchpad McQuack syndrome. She crash,
Yeah, she's
which is
always
got to be
crashing.
for a flying creature. That's got to be deeply embarrassing. So
I'm thinking
just
that
do you, Dulcie. Move at your pace.
maybe I read somewhere, and feel free to correct me in the comments, y'all, that they added this character because they wanted to appeal to more of a female audience, and I don't know, dragons were cool at this point. I'm not sure.
Eh,
Was this the era of Dragon Tales? I can't remember exactly,
No, Dragon
but
Tales was a little later, but
yeah.
I mean, look, when you were a girl, you go through some phases. One of those is the horse girl phase. The other one is the dragon girl phase. And then you combine them to get your horse dragon girl, aka the Kieran phase. And that one never really lets go. But that may just be me.
But I liked Dulcie, but I also
Oh
found her
yeah.
slightly annoying, and she like just
Yeah.
her presence. It felt a little bit unnecessary to me,
Yep.
but she was added to the second season to spice things up a bit, I guess.
Mostly to give them air support so that they'd have the
Yeah.
dynamic of like Sonic wasn't, Sonic could just zip from point A to point B, give him
Mm.
a second, and everybody just trail behind and they'd have to figure out different ways. Dulcie let them kind of close that travel gap and gave them a fun character with a bit they could throw in
Yeah.
for it as well.
I just thought it
So
was
that's
an odd choice. I mean, they could have given Tails the biplane from,
yeah,
the
the tornado.
games, the tornado, but no, they decided to add a dragon.
See, when you say it like that, it sounds awesome. We could have given them a plane. We're gonna give them a
We're gonna
dragon.
give them a dragon because why not?
What? Who doesn't want a dragon? Jones, we're gonna give you a dragon. Okay, I don't know what brought this energy, but I'm not gonna
Sure,
object.
why not? So, some of the plots of the series had that kind of energy. Like, sure, why not? There's just dinosaurs here now.
There's they're tetrapods. Tetrapods.
Tetrapods.
That's what they God.
Yeah, suddenly there's time travel, suddenly there's alternate dimensions, suddenly there's
Yeah.
all kinds of nonsense, but
Suddenly there's
we'll
Ixis
get into
Naugus.
that. We'll get into that
Suddenly
next
there's Tim
time.
Curry.
But yeah, speaking of some of the additional side characters, there was Sonic's Uncle Chuck, and this is one of the characters that was from like I think their original series Bible. There
Yep.
was Sonic's uncle who was a mechanic, a genius, who was then captured by Robotnik and turned into one of their earliest roboticized characters. So Sonic has this
Yep.
conflict of, oh, he wants to save his uncle, but his uncle has been, brainwashed and taken over by the bad guy. So it gives
Mm-hmm.
Sonic this kind of like a little bit of a nuanced story where like, oh, he really wants to save him, but he can't, and there's this bit of like an emotional core there.
Yeah, and it's made even harder by the fact that thanks to the way things shook out, Sonic watched Uncle Chuck get roboticized like right in front of him. Like this
Mm.
wasn't he like saw it at a distance. No, Sonic was due to be roboticized himself, but he got out. He got away. And so he watched his Uncle Chuck happen, and so he stuck with it. And this is ultimately why this version of Robotnik is probably most terrifying because
Mm.
he's roboticized so many folks, and the knowledge of de-roboticization is possible. It's known. Like they're trying to work on a machine for it in season
Mm-hmm.
two, to the point that they're semi-successful with Bunny for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But by having all of these people, the freedom fighters are always at a handicap. They can't just be like, okay, let's just go real hard. You can't go hard. Your mom's walking there. Your best
Hmm.
friend is walking around in there. There is a potential way to save them, but nobody knows how, and the only guy who does, when he gets roboticized, Robotnik has him he's a schlep bot. He just like
Hmm.
carries, moves things. Like Chuck is bottom of the barrel, and it's all because Robotnik's just rubbing that salt in the wound. Uh, and so it really drives home. It's like when you stop to reflect on it, it's like, why are the freedom fighters fighting the way they are? It's like, well, one, it's guerrilla warfare. It's all they've got. They're teenagers. Two, they can't. You can't like they can't. It's the ultimate mind screw. You
Yeah.
can't pick like any serious weapon. Like Sonic can crash through SWAT bots all day, no big deal. They're toasters. I see you. I see you, Battlestar fandom. They're toasters, so you can knock them over. But that's his Uncle Chuck. So Sonic's tension here with Uncle Chuck real is just expanded upon everyone. It explains the stakes and why doesn't Sonic just plow through all Robians?
Mm.
Because that's somebody's aunt, that's somebody's grandma, that's somebody's best friend who still owes him $5.
Yeah, it really like enhances the stakes. You know, this
Yep.
is real. This is his family. This is his parental figure that is lost. The rest of the cast are literal kids in the woods,
Literally.
teenagers and children fighting against this like existential terror
Mm-hmm.
in the world. And one of Sonic's, parental figures is there, but he's still lost. And, eventually they work out that they are able to like short circuit him so his mind is in control again of him. His agency is back. He's no longer under Robotnik's thrall, but he still is not like an organic creature anymore. He's still a robot. And he acts as like a spy for the freedom fighters, which is kind of a cool angle.
It is. And it really sings for Uncle Chuck because one of the big things they really drive home is your free will is gone when you're roboticized.
Hmm.
And they find the hack with the power rings. The power rings disrupts it, lets him come to the surface,
That's
but it
right.
only lasts for so long. But
Hmm.
eventually, like Sonic's like fight it, Uncle Chuck fight it, and Uncle Chuck, through sheer bloody force of will, I will bang my table. He pushes through, which speaks greatly of his character, like to the point where he's like, "Hang on, I can make my eyes glow so that I look like I'm a normal Robian, and then you and I are gonna, oh no, fight, and then you get away, and I'll just growl or whatever." And he becomes a terrific mole. He is their dude on the inside, and it really works. And he gets to flex his genius still, and it also just adds even more tragedy. They've got him back, but he's
Hmm.
so much more useful as the mole. Like
Yep.
he can come back to Knothole and be like, "All right, de-roboticization number 3. I'm a bunny. Nope."
Yeah, and kind of rounding out some of the extra characters, and then we'll probably close this out. Um, we have King Acorn, another parental figure who is kind of like lost. So this is
No.
Sally's father, who is literally locked in another dimension.
Yep.
And his name is King Acorn, and he is voiced by the legend Tim Curry, which is a wild
Smashing.
take. How did they get
Smashing.
Tim Curry for this like very small role? He only appears in a couple of episodes, but very distinctive voice, as you might imagine.
Oh yeah. Can't miss him. And he really only shows up for a bit, but when he shows up, it is all pistons fire. It is all things work, and it's like maybe he also gets everything in there is not a character in here who isn't touched by tragedy in some
Mm.
way. Like these teenagers inherently are touched by tragedy. Bunny, tragic. Antoine is just a tragic case, even without everything that he's dealing with.
His personality is tragic.
His personality is tragic. But then you get King Acorn. They finally find Sally's dad. He's in the void. And they're like, all right, we're going to get him out. And they get to the point where they can get him out. And you know what happens when he gets out? That silvery stuff. He cannot leave the void. He's been in there so long that leaving it he just starts turning to crystal and he will die. It is explicitly said he's gonna die. So I have to throw him back in the alternate dimension place where he literally can just like see everything going on but can't do anything. Like
Mm.
he can kind of watch all that's happening. Kind of like it's kind of like that. Just I see you through the veil darkly. And but he still helps, and he still like provides them like a list of all the other freedom fighters around Mobius. So when Tim Curry shows up, y'all, it's Tim Curry showing up.
Yeah, it's wild, and it kind of just reinforces that, the trope that the parents are gone.
Yeah,
We're not exactly going to explain why, and if we do, it's going to be hella tragic and angst filled, because the
yeah,
the teenage characters, they need to be the ones driving the action. The parents can't be hanging around all the time. They have to either be robots or crystal people stuck in a void.
yeah. It's honestly in terms of like you've got your YA protagonist. Like, how do we get the adults out of the way? They're all
Chuck them
they're
in a
all
void.
robots. They're all robots, or they're in the void. Like
They're
it is
dead.
like
They're in a
it's
void.
dead. They're
They're
all dead. So
uh,
it really does lock it out and forces your heroes to have to do a lot of their growing up. Like Sonic may be proud and crass and have the attitude, but he's also had to like shoulder up and get going. And Sally, same thing for Sally. And here she is,
mhm.
Daddy. Oh, you're turning into Crystal. This is the worst day.
The worst day ever.
Worst day ever.
But speaking of the void, we have our kind of like final antagonist kind of character who
Hmm.
legitimately kind of comes out of nowhere.
Oh my gosh, Nagus, you absolute sofa cushion. What are you?
So I guess they were trying to set up something once Robotnik was defeated. Maybe there's going to be this next villain in season 3, which didn't actually ever happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this was Ixis Nagus. He was in charge of the Void, and
Yep.
he's some strange looking creature with kind of human looking features, but elf ears and a horn, and
Yep.
a one of his hands is a regular human hand, the other is a crab claw. Um,
Hmm.
and he also has a tail in his weird purple jumpsuit
Yep.
and a
Yeah, like
beard.
yeah,
Because,
like
yeah, why not? Sure.
he's an evil wizard. He needs a beard.
Yeah.
And it
And
doesn't mean his boyfriend's standing around. I mean his wife.
yeah, this character was just kind of baffling. This was a very late in the series addition,
Hmm.
that later became, fairly important in the comics, I believe, for a time. Um, but yeah, it's a very, very strange character. And
I
I
mean,
imagine we would have seen more of him if there was a season 3.
yeah, maybe they would have explained him because like Sparrow, you doodle a bit. That's kind of a thing you do, right?
Occasionally.
If you had to like take this from a design perspective, could you just even begin to fathom what they were telling the poor artist?
I have no idea. This is the weirdest character design. I guess they were trying to make him kind of monstrous, but in a kid-friendly kind of way to show, I don't know, he's just like a bunch of cobbled together parts.
He's chimeric.
Yeah, I guess. The kind of comical horn on top. Like he's less scary looking and more comedic than
Yeah,
anything.
whatever menace they were going for fell. And I think in the comics they eventually was like, oh, he's this race called like trolls or something, and they have a specific they made a thing of it, but
Why
even I
not?
was like,
Why not?
sure, whatever. This dude's just freaking weird, y'all.
He is very strange.
Let's get this abomination across the finish line, out the door. I mean, he's the worst thing is he's supposed to be badder than Robotnik, and his like
Yeah.
attitude is that, but because he shows up as late as he does, and he doesn't have like one of the things that Sonic SatAM does is they really went for asymmetry in designs, and it works
Mm.
for like Sap, and it even works for Rotor, who's got like a side sash, even in his
Mhm.
not so awesome look. He slinks it to the side.
Mm.
But then it's like you've got this, and it's like they were like, yeah, let's keep up the asymmetry vibe. Didn't quite hit it.
Yeah.
Ended up with, I mean,
Why the crab claw? That is what I
that's
can't quite.
yeah. Like, if they had just left both hands normal and maybe given him a stick, I don't. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe
craft
like a
claws
magic
lost.
staff or something. Does he have a staff at one point? Maybe he does. I don't remember.
Is
But
his
like,
horn his staff? If Link killed him, would he get the horn and be able to attach
I
it?
guess he does have a little bit of Ganondorf vibes, a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe.
Gene-
Kind of a
like,
little bit, like you said, like a troll or like a pig
yeah.
creature or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like if this had shown up in the video game first, I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. Because video games, we will slam stuff together, we'll bang two
Yeah.
rocks together until it looks weird, and you can beat it up with pixels.
Well, if you just like
But
compare him with like Robotnik's design,
yeah,
which
so much
works
more
so
cohesive.
much better, and this design, is very loosely based off of the Eggman design from the
Hmm.
game, but it has its own unique charm, specific to this series. And of course, Jim Cummings' voice acting adds so much to the
Yep.
menace of this character. He
Yeah.
has his comedic moments, and he has his terrifying moments. Just a great villain for the series, legitimately harrowing at points. Um,
Oh yeah.
just a great
Like,
performance overall. So when you contrast it with this, you're just like, eh,
yeah, it's
eh.
such a step down. We
Yeah.
get that they're like, here is the ultimate evil, and I'm like, is it behind the weird looking thing? Because we've just spent 2 seasons with Robotnik, who until unless it was Sonic in front of him, was legit scary. He'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll just roboticize him. Are we gonna
Yeah.
do it? No, I'm just gonna. Why would I do it? Robotnik read the Evil Overlord handbook, and his only blind spot is Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, that's it. Anything else happens, he's like, reinforce this security, close this gap, do this thing. He's very on top of it, and that's what makes him just so terrifying. And then you put Sonic in front of him, and he's like, I shall create a pinball machine to make this thing suffer. And you're like, we've got a gun, we could kill him.
We've got a
No,
gun.
he must suffer. Okay, you're the
Sure. Why
boss.
not? It's
And
wild.
it kind of works because of that. And so yeah, let's go ahead and swing into old Robotnik because I can't. Watching through the series, I don't think Sonic ever called him Robotnik once. Always Robotnik,
Or always Robotnik.
always. And even like the ad I found like Salt in the Wound was when like King Acorn came back. It was like, how are you, Julian? Not Robotnik, not
Julian,
Doctor.
that's
Just
right.
always like Julian. Like it very clearly like I'm gonna call you by your name. My name. He's pulling the Deadpool. What's up, Francis?
uh,
Like
and
I wondered if Sonic ever would. I wonder if Sonic on a long enough timeline would have been like, oh wait, your name's Julian. How's it going, Julian? And just
Julian.
Robotnik is like, go back to calling me Robotnik, you turd.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked the first season designs. I don't know,
So
somehow they
good.
seem more like streamlined, more like cartoony.
Yeah.
In the second season, they some of the characters, like we mentioned, particularly Rotor, gets a
Or
downgrade.
Rotor.
Sally gets a vest, but and Antoine's character design changes
Ooh,
also. It looks kind of more goofy somehow.
as
Bunny
if they
mostly
couldn't
stays
hurt
the
him more.
same. Yeah, I don't know why, but I love the first season kind of character designs. Um, we skipped over a couple of small characters I do want to round back to.
Okay.
Um, particularly, we haven't mentioned yet Sally's like computer assistant Nicole, who is like a
Um,
pretty fully fledged character.
she is.
That it's funny. I was reading about the voice actors earlier, and Nicole's voice is also Sally's voice. She just kind of
Yeah.
has like a synthesizer over it, which is kind of funny. So she was often like talking to herself in the voice recording booth.
Just Sosi putting a little bit of culture on the edge of Nicole, and with Sally, she just go for her normal voice, maybe a little huskier, adjust the range that bit. But yeah, Sosi would do it. But let's throw in that other detail because while we were looking at voice actors, we found out that Sally Nicole on our side, Sosi, great American voice actress, but over in Japan, Sally and Nicole were voiced by who? Sparrow?
Megumi Hayashibara.
Megumi Hayashibara.
I couldn't believe it.
This,
Yeah, one of the most prolific Japanese voice actors of the 90s voiced this character. She was Lena Inverse and also Sally in Acorn.
Like, as if this show couldn't be 90s enough, Megumi Hayashibara shines her. I never knew a time to sleep. I only voice acted. Megumi Hayashibara shined it on this little rink-a-dink American series. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. But yeah, no, it was just Kath. It was just
Yeah.
the actresses talking to themselves, putting a little culture in it. And Nicole's great because I mean, we've talked about Nicole in other places, and I will get to my girl.
But yeah, this is a reoccurring character. She's basically always with Sally. Her
Always.
personal assistant, her Siri, her her Alexa. Um,
Hmm.
she's always there, kind of like supporting her. And from what I did some research that someone on YouTube, I'll link to it in the description, did a really interesting deep dive on what could have been some potential storylines in season 3. And Nicole potentially would have gotten a very interesting storyline where she basically becomes a Mobian, a creature, a human-like creature, or a girl, I should say, an animal girl.
I was denied actual cartoon Mobian Lynx Nicole.
Yeah, apparently that was a part of the plan for season 3, that maybe she would become a character, which I thought was really interesting. And unfortunate that we didn't get that.
I can't believe it. Can't believe it. This is pained laughter.
But
Ugh.
yeah, as Jay mentioned, in the comics, Nicole does become a anthropomorphic character. She is a lynx, and
Mm-hmm.
here's some very cute art from Starjoy, um, that I thought was
We
just
like
super adorable.
Nicole going through the Pinocchio story that we really did
Hmm.
with a lot of other sci-fi properties of, the AI, the robot becoming more organic, lifelike. It's a good arc. So to hear that, what we were seeing in the cartoon, it was like with Tails,
Hmm.
where, we were seeing licks of what he could potentially be, and here's where Nicole could have gotten to.
Yeah, it would be really interesting. But yeah, I highly recommend. There's a documentary by good old Groovy Jake
Thank you,
on
Groovy Jake.
YouTube about the Lost Saturday Morning third season. There's a full like almost like 2 hour documentary about what could have been. It's super interesting. So if you are all at all interested in what could have been, I recommend checking that out. Um, but that about wraps things up for us today in our
Mm-hmm.
discussion about the Saturday morning characters. So next time
Special
we will.
special shout out to Snively. Let's give him
Oh
the
yeah,
the
we kind of
toady,
forgot about Snively.
which is fitting for the character. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Snively, Robotnik's nephew, which,
Yeah, his literally
like,
his
y'all,
name is like Snively Robotnik.
it is. He's his nephew, and here's the thing that we didn't really get to touch on, but I'll say it here. So everyone's always been like, humans and Sonic. What in this incarnation of Sonic, Mobius is just Earth in the year 3000 after all humans have died out, and Snively and Robotnik are two space colonists who Robotnik tried to take over this. Hang on, let me look at my notes here. I got this written down. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Okay, there it goes. Robotnik attempted to take over the space colony he was a resident of, but accidentally destroyed it in the process and dumped him and Snively into a wormhole that dumped them out onto Mobius.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that is why they are the only humans on this planet because they did a Planet of the Apes and tripped through time to this point. And so, like, Robotnik brought his nephew, who he dumps on all the time, and it's like
Yeah,
Snively just,
he's kind of a shithead to
yeah.
Snively, but Snively is also kind of a shithead. So
Yeah, it plays out that well, and it's like in season one, he Snively just like takes it and groans, but in season two, he gets his snark back in and actually manages to outwit his uncle to the point that the series ended on him putting on the cloak, being like, "Now I shall be the big bad," and I'm
yeah,
like,
it's like heavily implied that Snively's gonna take Robotnik's place, but then Ixis Naugus is gonna come and like tear Snively a new one, basically,
Oh
because
yeah, like
Snively is kind of useless.
yeah, he is. He's pretty. It's at one point he gets his mind wiped and convinced by Sonic that's like, hey, that's a bad guy. You gotta beat up Robotnik. Robotnik doesn't even. He just like slaps him out of the way. It's like, what's going on here? In that deep rumbly baritone that he's got. So yeah, like I did want to like I know we were looking to close this out, but I'm like, look, I know we forget about him, but
Gotta
I need
throw
to give
poor
a shout
Snively a
out.
bone, yeah.
God, he could use it. He's probably got medical bills that needs new bones.
Oh man. But yeah, this was a great conversation about one of my favorite childhood cartoons.
Hmm.
Well, that just about does it for our investigation today. What a wild ride. Join us next time when we will be digging up the dirt on more of the Saturday morning cartoons, specifically the story arcs and plot.
Like we could stop with just the characters. Time to get deep in the paint.
Oh, we're
But if
going
you
deep, y'all.
Oh yeah, we're gonna put on the tinfoil hats. We are proper detectives here. But if you loved unraveling mysteries with us, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss a single clue or high-speed chase.
Our adventures are only getting wilder, and trust me, you'll want to be first on the scene.
First on the scene with me, Jones Grey Fox, multiversal detective extraordinary.
And I'm Spare the Tanuki, your plucky girl Friday.
And this has been the Case Files of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Until next time, keep those tails spinning and those minds sharp.